Hey, good morning. Chuck here with Apple Drains. Real quick note before we start the video. I want to thank everybody for last Saturday's group help, the live questions and answers. That was really fun. I think everybody learned a lot, mostly because when you, in the group, you see other people's problems, you're actually seeing them in your own yard. So many things are similar. You know, we covered all kinds of things: French drains, foundation drains, sump pumps. We covered quite a bit in that 2-hour session. That was quite good. We're going to do another one this Saturday. I'll post the information down below in the description box, and please join the group. We're getting all kinds of people in here. So we had a couple of contractors. Great advice came from them on how they solved the problem. The other benefit of joining this group is I think I'll go ahead and post the how-to tips, small short videos of how to do something, whatever it is. Install a sump pump, install footer tiles around the crawl space. All these things, you'll see them first. It's kind of like the sneak preview before we post it up here on YouTube. But today's video is how to install a French drain, catch basins to a sump pump, and then we're going to discharge to a natural area. And we're actually going to empty a swimming pool into our system. So should be just like a hurricane. That's a lot of water. 5, 6, 7,000 gallons of water are going to dump onto our system. Let's see how fast it actually works. Hey, good morning. Chuck here with Apple Drains. You can see that swimming pool in the video right there. And what's happening here is that when it rains, this area floods really bad. So we're going to put a catch basin there, and we're going to discharge it. This line's just to kind of give the guys so they know where to dig. We're going to discharge it right over here to a sump basin, and that sump pump's going to lift it up, and we're just going to pump it over into that field over there. And the reason I mentioned the swimming pool is because they want to take that down. So what we're going to do, we can actually simulate a major rainfall. Estimation of the amount of water in that pool, probably about 6,000 or 7,000 gallons of water. Way more than an average rainfall. So when we finish, we're going to open up that liner and let this thing drain so you can see just how well catch basin. There'll be easy flow across this section right here. Another catch basin, and it's going to discharge over to the sump pump. Sump pump's going to lift it up and send it out. We're going to use a Zoller M98 half horsepower pump. Let's see if it can keep up with how much water comes out of this liner when we're done. So here's the sump basin that we're going to use, and this, you can find these at Lowe's and Home Depot. This particular one, this one works pretty good. You saw the lid, but our inlet line, we've got to drill our own holes for our inlet and our outlet of this thing. So when we get ready to set the pump basin, the sump pump basin down into the hole, then we'll go ahead and cut this to the right level. That's probably the last thing that you do before you put the sump pump in, is you want to know where your inlet line comes in. It can come in up here, down here. That all depends on your excavation, how deep your French drain or your downspout drain, whatever you're bringing over to the sump basin. It all depends on how deep it is. So I've posted a couple teasers up there with the story cards about how far over from the French drain does water actually get into the system. And that's a great question, and we're going to show you an example of that over here by this wheelbarrow. We'll go ahead and flood that area, and let's just see if that water actually makes it over to the French drain. We're going to use easy flow because it works great, and it's very easy, lightweight, easy for you to transport. I swear by it, especially down here in the sand. It works great in the clay too, but here in the sandy soil, I think it's far better than gravel perforated pipe. So let's go ahead and get started. So Chuck's already started the sump hole, the base, to dig the hole for the pit. You can see it's getting down there quite deep. Need to go about another 2 feet, and then we'll be able to set that pump in. Then we'll trench the line following this little piece of pipe. That's just to give them a guide over to the sump basin. We're going to put a 12 by 12 in here. We could use a 6 by 6, but this area, if you look up, you can see it's just so many leaves here, these oaks and these pines. A lot of debris drops down here, all the time, not just seasonal, but all the time. So we want to make sure we have a large enough catch basin to hold that debris. The debris will drop down to the bottom of that basin. And then of course you just lift the lid off and take it out. That way no debris gets into your line. So out here on this rural property, we're out in the country here, and you can see a palmetto. This is one right here. And you see there's the actual trunk of the tree, but you see that where it's going underground, that's the root, and it runs underground parallel to the surface. It doesn't go down, it runs this way so that it can get all the nutrients and water and all these things. Very difficult to kill a palmetto. I mean, it's virtually impossible. If you want to remove a palmetto from your property, you pretty much dig them out. And this is a hard excavation because this thing's huge underground, and there are lots of them. You see, here's another one coming up. This is a palmetto, the beginning of one. So digging all the way over there to the Sump Basin, we'll get started. A lot of people ask the question, should we perforate the pit? That is a great question, and sometimes we do. In the sand, if I perforate this, it will allow more water around the area to go into the basin. But if we do perforate it, then we need to wrap that with a soil separator to keep that sand from getting in there. Most of the time now, more and more, I have simply just put these down in the ground and not perforated the pit, because it's basically the discharge. Discharge to daylight. I've mentioned that many times. We've got a French drain coming from the first catch basin, and that's the inlet portion of this. The French drain here where you see the little conduit line, that's the inlet portion. We've collected that water. We're going to discharge it over to the Sump Basin, and from there the pump lifts it up. So do we need to perforate this? You know, if you're putting it in the lowest point of your yard and you want to collect more water, you can. I don't think you should anymore. I think that you should keep it solid, because you're using other things to collect the water, not the basin. The basin's not designed to pick up water around the yard. It's designed to have water come in from your inlet, and then a pump lifts it up and sends it out. Okay, you can see Chuck starting the inlet line is coming into the pit. We're going to put that easy flow down there. Not a real hard job. There are some of those palmetto roots, haven't got them yet, but they're down there. And we'll go from that catch basin. You just started the trench, and if you notice, there's a rise in the ground here. It comes up, then it goes back down to the sump pit. This area, all this area is very low and subject to flooding when it rains. Not much rain and it floods pretty quickly. And what we're going to do, we're going to empty that pool. There's 5,000 or 6,000 gallons, maybe more, in that pool, and we'll see how fast the system actually works. So we have to have a trench that's wide enough to get this easy flow in here, right? And that is 8 inches wide. It's the exact width of the shovel. It'd be nice to be a little bit wider than your shovel, and you can see we're making that trench wider. Where you see that big hole, that's where there was a great big palmetto, a lot of roots. But regardless, you work backwards. You can go back as many feet as you want. Then you come back and you scrape out the trench moving forwards. So once you have your trench dug, you should step back and take a look, and you can see that we're coming back through that high spot I talked about. It's right here by the wheelbarrow. This needs to go down fairly deep. Not that the pipe needs to go down deeper, that's not what we're talking about. We're digging through a grade, so it has to be a little deeper so that the pipe can run downhill or level, either one, preferably downhill. So we're going to widen up the trench so it's easier to push our shovel through and get it to come down. We need to come down about 4 more inches right there where Chuck's digging. It's kind of the tough thing to do. You've been digging on this trench for a while and you go, oh gosh, I got to go back and go through that again. But that's what you need to do. You got to get this thing to run downhill or at level at best. And we've almost got it. You can see from where he's at, a few more feet, and then it really drops off. We'll run right over here to the sump basin. We're getting ready to set up the sump pump. I'll show you how to do that also. Okay, we set up our 12 by 12 catch basin. Remember, the reason that we're using the big catch basin here is because there's so much debris that falls year round here, from the pine needles to all the oak trees. The oaks are behind me, but they drop leaves and pine needles, year round. So we want to have something that's going to be able to collect that debris. And so this is just a bigger basin. It's a little deeper down inside. So you can see we've got about 6 inches of collection, maybe 4 inches of collection inside the basin. And yeah, there is maintenance. You have to clean it out. That's just part of anything like a roof or the oil in your car. So we've got the basin set, and you'll notice that, can you see here, it's a little lower, whoops, it's a little lower than the natural grade. That's because we want water to drop into our basin directly. Next, we're going to hook up a piece of Easy Flow. And don't get confused. Easy Flow is a very good little pipe to use, especially for the DIY, because it's so lightweight, easy for you to transport. Don't need to have all those things, so you have gravel perforated pipe. But if you use gravel perforated pipe, that's fine. I'm just using Easy Flow on the job here because I know how well it works. And so we hook up the Easy Flow. It just slides into the adapter of the catch basin. We're going to actually put another basin right here and then continue our line. You can see the trench all the way over to the sump basin. So let's go ahead and install that, and then we'll go ahead and backfill. And all we're going to do is just pull the dirt right back on the top. It does not float up. That's just ridiculous. If you see a video where you see a piece of pipe floating in a puddle, man, that's ridiculous. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and backfill it. You need about 3 or 4 inches of soil on the top. That way you know that it's secure in the ground, and you shouldn't have any problems. I've never had a problem like that. So right here at this end of the Easy Flow, remember, it's just a couple of feet here, but we need 2 basins because there's a lot of water here. We have to make an extension. You've seen me do this. This is 6-inch SDR 35. You can find it at Lowe's. Make your measurement. Pound it down in. Remember, we want to be just below grade. Just below grade. Okay? About a ½ an inch or an inch. That way the surface water drops right into the system. So we're using an external coupling. What that means is it's external. It goes around the outside. This is available all over the place. A couple bucks. Snaps on. Whoops. Snaps on to the next piece. Push it down into the bottom of that trench. Make sure you're at the bottom. And you can see our line and 2 catch basins. Now we're just going to step it down into the trench all the way over. And we've got a great system installed. Very quick, very easy. Take about a couple hours. Now we're ready to go ahead and backfill. But what we're going to do over here, I'll use just a solid piece of pipe. We've collected the water. We collected that water back there, so we can contain it. Small piece of solid pipe. We're going to drill into the sump basin. You've seen me do this many times. Okay, you can see here, this is the end of the Easy Flow. We're going to put a small piece of solid pipe right there, but you can guesstimate, you can guess, you can see that that's going to be right there. So we're going to drill a hole right into the sump basin at this level. So using your handy dandy drill, this is a 4.5 inch hole saw. You see how quick that is. Now we'll put a coupling on here, and we'll just send it right into this hole, and I'll show you how we do that. Just for this video and this example, I'm going to use a piece of NDS perforated pipe, and it's got the sock wrapped around it. I get a lot of questions. A lot of people ask, can't we just put perforated pipe with a sock around it and act as a French drain? You know, will it work? Well, yes, it will work, but the amount of water that is going to be grabbed from this is very, very low because there's no aggregate around it. There's no rock, or in this case, there's no peanuts around it. There's no aggregate. So it has to force its way through the soil, very slow. Does it work? Yeah, it works, but would not recommend it. Here on the end of this pipe and coming into the sump basin, it's fine. It's not going to make any difference at all. So I'm just giving you that as an example. Let's go ahead and hook this piece up. I've always found it best when using corrugated pipe into the sump basin that you go ahead and slice
a little 4 or 5 inch piece, just slice it. That way you can pinch it together and stick it through your hole. It will actually expand inside there and be very secure. So you can see I made the slice, and then what we're going to do is just pinch this together and slide it right into that sump basin. Let's do that. So here's our connection. We go ahead and put our coupling on, and you can see it's a little bit long. Okay, that's fine. I pinched it together here at the end. We'll pinch it again, and we're going to slide this inside this opening. Sorry, trying to do it with one hand. Showing you, it really is easy. Yeah, it went straight in, and you can see the inside. And if I pull this, you can see that it snaps open, very tight and secure. And we're right at the center of this coupling. Let's go ahead and put this piece on. Snaps in place. Go ahead and put your fabric back over those holes. Now we're ready to backfill. So tip of the day, 2 of them. This is the fitting. This is a male, see the male threaded 1.5 inch adapter, and it's a slip or a glue at the other end. So is this one. Male threaded 1.5 inch adapter and a slip at the other end. But notice how much deeper this one is. This is a much better fitting to use than this one, because when you put the pipe in here with glue, it's going to have a whole lot more area for that glue to hold, right? So that's tip number 1. This piece is going to go right into the port of the Zoller M98. It just screws right in there. Okay, tip number 2 of the day. Here's 2 check valves. They're exactly the same. This one came from Lowe's, and that's fine. This one comes from my supplier, plumbing supply, that I buy all of my parts from. And you can see the difference. See how much bigger this one is? That's from the plumbing supply. And this one, sorry, busy. This one is from Lowe's. They're exactly the same. You see the arrows pointing upwards. They're marking which way the flow works. That means that there's a check valve in here. A little flapper opens up and down, up and down. As water is pumped up, the flapper opens up. When the water stops pumping, that flapper closes. It stops the water from coming back down the line. Very important part of this installation of any sump pump. But what's different here, if you take a look, notice from Lowe's, it's got 1.5 inch to 1.25 inch. This is how they sell them. You've got to switch this around so that it becomes 1.25 inch to 1.5 inch. I love how I get mine from the plumbing supply because it already comes like that. Yes, we do have to tighten these clamps up, but I don't have to do anything as far as switching these around. So next we're going to drill a 3/16 inch hole down into the pipe. This is it's called a pressure relief, and that keeps the pump from locking up, because air is also sucked up when the pit is dry. That keeps that pipe and check valve and pump safe. You need to put that in there. Okay, setting up the Zoller M98. We've got a male threaded 1.5 inch adapter that screws into this port. Very simple, very easy. Make that just as tight as you can. You can put a wrench on it, but don't over tighten it. Then we've got a small riser, and this riser will go into the 1.5 inch adapter right here. And remember, we have turn it around, we've got a pressure relief. See that little hole right there? That's fine. This riser can really be at any height. If you're discharging underground, okay, if you're going to bring the 1.5 inch out underground, I suggest that the riser end just below the bar or right at the bar, because you can see how big the check valve is. We're running out of room inside of the basin. We want to make sure if we're coming out underground, we want to have enough room to be underground, okay? So it's very close. You can find a check valve that actually sits right here, but these check valves, a lot of questions. Should I use a spring or a flapper. I really like the flapper. I think that any debris that comes up through here, because this pump's so powerful, it can lift up 1/2 inch solids. So if a piece of mulch drops in there, it could get sucked up. And the spring-loaded check valve, it closes up on that piece of mulch, but it doesn't close. It gets stuck. This one works to me a lot better. So anyways, we're gonna run this up and straight out the top of that sump basin and discharge over into that low area, which is just swampland over there. It just discharge right over there, so it doesn't really matter too much about this riser. We could actually put this check valve above ground, but I like to keep things down in the basin, much more secure. In a basement, this check valve should be above the basin because it's so much easier to service. This here, when we're in the ground, in the yard, remember we're over there? When we're in the yard, this to me should be down inside the pit because it's safe. We put the lid on it and it's safe. So we're using an all-in-one glue. In other words, this has primer built into it. We're going to go ahead and push this all the way down to the bottom of that fitting. And you'll notice I've got more leverage. I can actually kind of twist the whole thing, but that's fine. Clean off your excess glue if you want. You don't need to, but you can. And this is ready to go. Next, we're going to tighten up these no hubs, because if we do need to service the pump, we'll take that apart from the no hubs, and then we're going to continue our riser on up and out of the sump basin. So using your handy dandy Black & Decker, or whichever kind of drill you use, this is a 5/16 inch bit, and we're going to screw down on this stainless steel clamp just as tight as that drill can make it. Perfect. We've got to do that on each one of these because we want to make sure it stays secure. So we'll do that, and then we'll add a piece of pipe up here on the top. We'll set this down in the pit, add that pipe, and we're almost ready to backfill. Okay, got my riser installed. I'm going to tighten up the clamp. First, I'm going to loosen it a little bit. Now I'm going to tighten it up just as tight as this drill can make it. Perfect. Pump placement. It is kind of important, but not necessarily. I know that's contradictory, but depending on how you're going to discharge, this lid, you can see, has already got knockouts in it. I'm going to go ahead and place this over the discharge line, secure my lid. Whoops, get that on there. Secure my lid, and then I'm going to put some screws in here to help hold the lid tight. Real simple. But you can see, you've got to come out someplace. This particular job, we're coming up. I'm going to put a 90 on the top of this pipe and send it right over to the natural area over there, which is way far away from here, and let it naturally drain. There's a pond back there. All good. Okay, got the discharge line going out into the natural area. Now we just need a 90. Remember, we're using an all-in-one glue. That means that it's got primer and PVC cement inside. Just push it on there, hold it for just a second, because it does try to pop off of there. Because it's slippery, it tries to slide up. Only takes a second, it's solid. Let's glue the discharge. Whoops. If you get it inside, it'll be fine. Let's glue the discharge. See, it does happen to everybody. Not a problem. And we'll glue that on, set it up for just a second, and it's done. We're ready to actually plug the pump in, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and backfill, and I'm going to add one more thing to give you all these examples. This video is covering a lot of things. Remember that we're draining that pool, and this is also a low area, but the pool will act as a major rainfall, almost like a hurricane. There's so much water there. Let's see how fast it actually works. And the other thing that we're going to figure out is how much water actually moves. If this is the French drain, how much water is pulled 20 feet away? Will that water actually come over? You know, it's got to flood down and come up. So when the ground is full of water, it should actually pull water from 20 feet away. Very slowly, 10 feet away, a little faster. 5 feet away, perfect. So what we're doing is we're going to add some gravel to the top of this pipe. We're just pouring it in, just pouring it straight in, pouring it straight in there. fill it up. We'll add a couple more here. We got a couple extra bags. We want to bring this gravel all the way to grade. And the reason that we're demonstrating this is to show you how well gravel works. It works great. Remember, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use gravel. I've never said that, ever. What I'm saying is that Easy Flow works just as good, if not better. But what we're doing is we're creating a channel for water to drop down into. It's going to drop directly through the aggregate. We do this quite often. Maybe just a little bit more. We want to bring that so that's up to grade. But the water drops through this just like butter. I mean, it's going to flood when we open up this pool. This area is going to flood. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But that water is going to pour through the gravel and go straight down to the bottom of the trench. It will work almost as fast as the catch basins. We've got some wood on top of the catch basins so that we don't get the dirt in there when we backfill. But we've got 2 catch basins, and then we've got some gravel. We add this lots of times. When we can bring gravel to grade, we bring gravel to grade. It's by far the best way for you to have a French drain installed. Perhaps you're in the front yard or the backyard and you've got great sod. You wouldn't want to do this. Much better off putting catch basins. They're not intrusive. Mowers can go over them and they work extremely well. But if you've got an area that you can bring gravel to grade, for example, around the footing, the foundation of the house, if you've got a slab home, that footing's not very deep. So we could bring gravel to grade and just create that natural edge, keeping the weeds out and making it easier for the lawn people to cut your grass. Okay, we've got everything installed. You can see the sump pump cord wrapped around the discharge pipe. We'll secure that again later. We've got it all backfilled. We've got 3 different surface drains. We've got the gravel drops straight down through that gravel. We've got 2 catch basins. Showed you how to extend that catch basin in a 12 by 12. We'll clean all that up so that it's nice and pretty. Tomorrow we dump the pool. So let's take a look. I got my boots on. I'm going to walk over here. This is about 4 inches deep over here, some places. And you can see that water, it's almost gone. It's almost out of the pool completely. And what it did was it flooded all the way around here. And it came out, came around. Now it's moving back over to the system over here. And you can see all the debris. Remember that we are in a spot that debris falls year-round, every day. More debris drops down here from pine needles and from the oak trees. And you can see how much debris is sitting on top of this gravel. There's easy flow underneath, and then I just left a small section open with gravel to act as a trench drain so that water can drop straight down. And we have a 4-inch pipe that runs over here to the sump basin. And you can see that sump, it's full, but the pump's keeping up with that. This is only a 4-inch line. 4-inch line can only handle so much water. That's a fact. No matter how, you can never beat Mother Nature. You'll never beat Mother Nature. That's impossible. But that line, the sump pump, is lifting it up and sending it. And you see how it's pumping out? It's just a full 1.5-inch pipe. Zoller M98. It's kicking butt, guys. It's flooding out into the natural area, and there's a pond that's back there. It's just taking it all away. What a great system. What a great system. It's doing exactly what it did before, but this time I opened it up with even more holes, a lot more drainage coming out of it. In fact, let's go ahead and put another, got the knife right here. Let's go ahead and cut all the way down to the bottom. We're really overloading that system now. Really overloading it. These guys want this pool out of here, so they told me I could do whatever I wanted. Gave us the gun to shoot and say that's pretty cool. It just makes a good video. But you can kind of see what's happening here. Over there, there's a 12 by 12. If you look carefully, you can see here is a small 6 by 6. And you can see all the debris that's getting sucked down into it. Pull this off of here. And yeah, it's starting to flow. Starting to flow really good. Really nice, really nice. What we're going to do is after this stops draining, we'll open up these catch basins. We'll see how much debris is actually in the basin. You know, everybody says, oh, it's going to fill up with sand and clay and dirt. Let's find out. You know, let's just take a look. And you can already see the gravel. These people that say, I don't know what they call that, that they don't need a catch basin, just put gravel up there. You can see what happens here. It just packs up with debris right away. And it's not like clay or sand that can be washed down through. This stuff has to decompose. When it gets down into that gravel, that's not working anymore. That stops working, and you really have to dig it out and replace the gravel. So I think that the catch basin works a whole lot better. You can see the swirl on the 6 by 6. You see it? It's pulling water. It's pulling as much water as it can take. Remember, it's a 4-inch line. That's all. It's a 4-inch line. And it's pulling, it's drying this area out. It is drying this area out. Okay, let's take this lid off of this sump basin and take a look and see how much sand or debris actually got down into this pit. There's a couple more screws. Let's take a look. Let me bring the camera over here. Okay, you can see, I'm going to go ahead and lift up this float so we can pump it out a little bit. And that little, what looks like a leak, that's the pressure release. Remember what that does? It keeps it from getting airlocked. And yeah, you can see, there's a little bit of sand here. Not much, a little bit. Mostly just right here on this side. Don't know why, but it's just right here. On this side, just nothing down here. So nothing really got into the pit. No sand or debris. Let's take a look at one of the catch basins. Remember we talked about the gravel, and you can see how much debris. There's no way. He'd have to get a blower and try to blow this off. And that debris, let's pull some gravel out. You can see that debris is getting all the way down into the stone. Do not do this. My recommendation, if you want to put a catch basin in your, if you want to have a low spot and try to collect the surface water, I would not put this in there. I would not. But let's look at the catch basin. Remember, there's debris on the top. Let's open it up. And yeah, there's a little sand in there. Not much. That's about it. Not much in there at all. Worked really good. Let's look in the 12 by 12 because that took the brunt of the water. That took the most water right away. Take a look. I'm reaching clear down to the bottom. Just a little bit of sand down there. Hardly any at all. Nothing. I mean, I wouldn't even clean that out, but I'm just showing you. This thing worked really good. And you can see the pool is empty. The areas are all dry all the way around. Total time for this one, because I shot it over there, so the water went that way, probably about 8 minutes, and totally dry, all gone. All the water is gone. I can't say it enough. Someone else make this demonstration, I'll be impressed. Hey, this is Chuck with Apple Drains, reminding you that if you believe you can do something, I guarantee you can do it. Have a great day. So, a real quick note about the live help, the group chat. Hey, what a great time we had. I don't know, will we have 30, 40, 50 people in that group last time? It was great. I think everyone learned by listening to other people's problems and seeing that same problem in their yard. So sign up.